When I look at a piece of land or a place like Church Street, I see something that's not there. I see what it could be if it was fully developed and had restaurants and cafes, buildings and plazas, and I see it already completed. It's a curse and a blessing.
You know, I was thinking, if there's something you want to do, because there's a lot of people in this room who come to the Greatness Factory because they got a dream, they've got a vision, they've kind of gone there mentally, right? But they haven't gone there physically. And I always say, go from mental creation into physical action. What's the first physical action you could take? His physical action was to rent a space, right? Like we rented in WeWork for 7 months. I put my whole team in a WeWork over here for 7 months, and we worked out of the WeWork. And I would go to work every day, and I'd go, what do they not have? Right? Because WeWork has 400,000 members, 400 locations. They generated $1.7 billion of revenue. Their problem was they spent $1.8 billion. Okay. But the concept worked. So I put everybody in the office, and I noticed they don't have a good conference room. They definitely don't have a theater like this. They don't have a podcast studio. What if I could kind of pull a Walt Disney move? What if I could make it different and better and more magical? What if I could take that concept, bring a little Vujade to it, a fresh twist on an old way of thinking, and create this? And so that's kind of what we did with this.
It was wonderful, and you were so enthusiastic about this. Everybody that I said it's going to be a greatness factory, and everybody's like, what? And so people were not getting it.
Yep.
And they were not enthusiastic about it. And I'm like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And he's got the energy, he's got the drive, he's going to make this happen. And sure enough, you did it. And it's just fantastic what you've done.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the part where y'all clap and say it's a great job. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with you. Okay, so let's go back to a big question because I'm now getting into the capital raising business.
Yes.
Okay, and how many of you want to raise capital at some point for something? Raise your hand. But you kind of sit on the sideline and you watch other people raise capital, and one day you go, I could do this. Like, I think I could do this. So when you go to raise that capital, go all the way back in the beginning. When you needed to raise capital for the Cumberland or whatever, did you just go to your friends? Did you go, I'm raising capital? But like, tell us how you did it in the beginning, and then how you do it today.
Wow, this is good. I should have had that drink before. My daughter Kate is over here, and she works with me, and we make presentations all the time. And she said, Dad, I would like you not to have a drink before the presentation. I'm like, why is that, honey? She goes, because you talk too much. And then when I got here, I asked Coach, I said, Coach, you think I can have one of this? Is whiskey and wisdom? Think I can have whiskey? And he goes, when you're done. And so I'm really anxious to have that drink. But if you watch this little video that's on our website, if you go to the website, good luck spelling the name, and then you go to the history section, and you're going to see this little corny video. It tells the story, but it's not Tony telling the story. It's 5 mayors telling the story, 3 planning directors telling the story, council people telling the story, lawyers telling you the story. So the stories are true. And if I told you the story, you'd go, well, that's probably not true. You probably had a whiskey before you got here. But when we were working on that Cumberland, I'm not kidding you, nobody in Nashville thought anybody would ever want to live downtown. Nobody. And I say 99.99% of the people thought we were nuts. And they said, well, who's that other piece? I said, well, my wife was hoping I was right. And but we had 68 banks say no.
Wow.
68 banks. And then a gentleman named Bill Wardrop, deceased now, he set up a meeting for me with Jim Crown of Lester Crown and Company. They own General Dynamics, if you kind of get the feeling for how significant these people were. And I went to this meeting, and I was so excited. I made my pitch, and it took me about 30, 40 minutes to make the pitch. And I was, you know how it is when you speak, you kind of give it your all. And I'm sitting there, and I said, well, Mr. Crown, do you have any questions? And he goes, yeah, I got one question. And I said, what's that, sir? He goes, you don't have apartments in downtown Nashville? I said, no, sir, we have not a one. He goes, let's go build some apartments. So I got $9 million from him. And then a Paris, France-based bank, because we already said no for all the American banks, Credit Lyonnais made us a loan on Cumberland. And so if we had given up at number 30 or number 50 or number 68, that said no, then maybe there'd still be residential someday, but we wouldn't have done it.
Wow.
And so we just kept going for it until we found the right guy and the right bank. And so I think the lesson to that is, and the lesson I've learned over 24 projects over all these years, 40 years here in Nashville doing business, is the important thing is being in front of the right person.
Yeah.
The right person that it will either gets what you're doing or is interested in learning, interested in getting what you're doing,
right.
And they want to do business, and they want to do what you want to do. If you're in that setting, it takes hours, a few hours, and you got a deal. If they don't want to do what you're doing, they're not interested in whatever you're selling, best to determine that as fast as you can and move on. And I subscribe, this is kind of corny, but I get 9 no's to get every yes. And when somebody says no, I go, yeah, I didn't make this up, but I sure lived it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you listening to me. I walk out and I go, 8 more to go. Yeah. And so that's persistence.
Yep.
That's what it takes. I mean, it's no hard work and persistence. There's no substitute for it.
When did you start going outside to get capital other than just going to the bank? Because now, and I don't know how much you have to raise to build even a structure like this. I mean, tell us about those numbers.
I told you about Cumberland, and I couldn't possibly raise that money in Nashville because everybody thought it was nuts. So you can't raise money from people that think you're crazy. Yeah. And so when we were getting ready to do the Viridian, I had a family, and I always leave these people nameless because they would be embarrassed by this. And so they were going to provide $3.1 million. Okay. That's the equity I needed to do Viridian. And so I had that $3.1 million committed, and I designed that building. And Cumberland was so bad for me, so hard for me, that I called the guy, Jim Borders in Atlanta. Novar is his company. I called Jim. I said, would you please give me a peer review on my building? And what he didn't know is I copied Metropolis in Atlanta on Peachtree in much of what I did. And I said, would you give me a peer review? Look at what I'm doing. Tell me if I'm nuts. Mm-hmm. And I went, and the meeting was scheduled, and I was about ready to go. And the local family pulled their $3.1 million. Same day I'm going to Atlanta. And so I'm drive to Atlanta, and I'm kind of bummed. And I go in there and present to Jim, and Jim goes, Tony, you nailed it. I still didn't tell him I copied his building. But you nailed it. And he said, I've never developed anything out of Atlanta. How could I be your partner? And I didn't even think about it. I said, well, Jim, $3.1 million ought to do it. We shook hands. And on the spot. So here's a guy that wanted to do it. He liked my idea. It was his idea. And so he came in immediately. But what a guy. What brilliant guy. Engineer and a lawyer. Wife headed up the bankruptcy practice for King and Spalding, which is a good thing for a developer. And so we started doing this building, and about 3 months after we're underway, he said, we probably ought to get an operating agreement. I said, yeah, we probably should do that. And we met, and he said, well, Tony, this was your idea. You should get most of it. I said, no, Jim. I mean, if it wasn't for you, I would have made all these mistakes. You really helped me. No, Tony, you should do this. This is the way the partnership was. And we couldn't give each other enough. Wow. And so we did that together. We did Encore together. We were supposed to do the Bridgestone site, but he took hot money from somebody that wanted you to fail so they could take your business. And that somebody is nobody's friend. They were called Lehman Brothers. And so he took 50 million of their hot money, and boy, they ruined his life and a lot of other people's lives. And then they got karma. They got wiped out. Love it. And so, not all capital is good capital. But I have to tell you, I spend 80% of my time these days doing two things. Not what I love, which is developing, but selling condos. That's where Kate comes in, and raising money. And so I'm constantly in front of big investors and small investors. But always good to be in front of a billionaire if you can, because they can do these things, or a big corporation.
Right. So when you first started this, did you already have all this confidence? Did you manufacture the confidence? Did you fake it till you made it? Till, or like, when did you know, man, I could really do this? Because I don't know how much money you've raised in your life, but it's a lot, right?
Billions.
Billions. Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't sit around thinking about these things, but when you ask me these questions, it does kind of sink in. I told you, I'm very big on preparation.
Yeah.
I will study and run numbers and go through the whole process. And then when I get done, I look at it and go, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I mean, this is ridiculous. Who would do this?
Yeah.
Why would anybody do this? And I'm so critical of myself,
Okay.
and I do this, so much preparation that by the time I get into the meeting, I am so prepared. I don't need notes or thought or anything. I'm just giving it, preparing it, maybe the fifth version that I've come up with, but preparing it and present it. And then and my favorite thing, they ask questions. I love it. And there's typically negative questions. And I love those too. And I just love to, I understand, I hear your question. I understand you're probably asking it because of this. Let me talk about that.
Yeah.
And I just love that kind of thing.
Yeah. So what is your overall philosophy on just negotiating? Because how many of you negotiate on a daily basis for something? And I found it very pleasant working with you, and I really felt like, because if you go to a guy like Chris Voss, who wrote Never Split the Difference, that was this FBI negotiator, he really sees it as this is a partnership between us, right? A lot of people come into kind of a win-lose mindset about negotiating. Like, what is your general philosophy when you're looking on a big deal? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I really think I'm kind of repeating myself. The goals and objectives of the two parties have to mesh.
Yeah.
And so I know what I want to do. I need to understand what you want to do, whether you're looking to invest or you're looking to buy something. So I want to sell something, and if I'm with somebody that wants to buy it, I need to understand, what are your goals and objectives? Do I meet your goals and objectives? If I don't meet your goals and objectives, best thing I can do is just tell you that.
Yeah.
But if I do meet your goals and objectives, how do we bring this together to consummate a deal?